once again for the renegade master. Back 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 once again for the renegade master.
So hi guys, we are back. We are definitely back again. Not the renegade master. Hold for a second. Let me wet my whistle. And then we're going to get into it. And what is it we're going to get into it? I hear you say it is Love is Blind season 4 and it is the reunion. I won't call it the live reunion because that went tits up, as we all know. So it definitely wasn't live. So Netflix managed to pull it all together and bring it out last night. I will say that all of them looked good. They did. Each and every one of them did look good when they sat on those seats. Overall, I'm going to say the whole reunion show was just pants. It was the worst one that I've seen in a very long while. But as I always say, you let me know what you think in the comments. Share your thoughts, your views. But I would say that, yeah, that reunion show was literally absolutely diabolical. So they talked about first went to Tiffany and Brett, and they talked about Tiffany moved to Portland, and her and Brett are together, and she moved to Portland to be with him. And they did show their apartments, which was a good little montage, to be fair. I cannot lie, it was a good little montage, and their home was beautiful, to be fair. They talked about, kudos to Marshall for getting Brett and Tiffany together, because Marshall said that he thought that Tiff was a wonderful woman and they hadn't connected, but he believed that Tiff would be a good choice for Brett, which he took on board and went with, as we see, because now they are married a year later. Brett talked about his favourite memory, was the last dinner before the wedding, and if you can remember, he surprised Tiffany with the photographs of her engagement photos. He took those photos, framed them, and put them up for the dinner, which she absolutely loved, and they are up in his house, I can confirm. And that was because at that stage Tiff was crying and stressed over the wedding and everything like that, and he wanted to make her feel better. But what we actually didn't know is he travelled from Portland to where she was, to Seattle, which is a 3-hour drive there and back, to literally sit and be with her, and then he drove back. And I'm sorry, but that is the epitome that speaks to Brett's character and how he is and how he behaves and manoeuvres within his relationship, and now his marriage with Tiffany. As Tiffany says, what they do is they consistently go on dates. They never stop dating each other. They always make it fresh and new. They always find new things to do and new things about each other, which I love. As I said, I can't stop speaking so much accolades about these two, because I absolutely love them. And then we go on to Chelsea and Kwame. I'll have to say Chelsea and Kwame looked absolutely good, and they actually looked really happy with each other. So I am actually surprised and a little bit happy that, they lasted the year to each other. And also Chelsea has mentioned the fact that she went back and they've met Kwame's mum, and things are going on really well there. They did bring up the issue with the poolside chat, and we all know what I mean by when I say the poolside chat. When Kwame and Micah had that chat at the pool, and it went on for quite a while, with a little bit of flirtation added in there, I might add. And they showed the clip of actually Chelsea and Micah having the talk in terms of the failed joke Micah is trying to say that she made at the pool, which is about taking a cheers for a failed proposal. Basically, Chelsea wanted the lowdown in regards to what that was about, and in regards to their breakup in the pods. She said that the footage was difficult and uncomfortable, but she said she had that convo with Micah and with Kwame, and the resolution has been given, and she believes that Micah's grown in herself, and Kwame had to jump to the defense and said it was hard for him to watch, and it was immature of what he did in regards to the discussions he was having with Micah, and apologized to Chelsea. Now my thing is okay, you've apologized to Chelsea, you told her what was what, but even though you had that poolside chat with Micah, you still continue to have another chat at Chelsea's birthday party. Now that bit wasn't even mentioned, it wasn't even brought up. Kwame saying he's no longer had an interest in Micah, and that basically when it came to breaking up, they were going to break up anyway, and they were not having fun in their dates at all. This is the dates in the pods, which I found a bit odd, because my thing is your whole heart was set on Micah, completely set on Micah, until Micah basically told you what she told you, and kind of, I feel, trying to dangle him on a freaking string, to be fair, and probably keep him as a second option. I don't know, but my thing is okay, you said you didn't have no interest in Micah in the pods, really, and the fact that you were no longer having fun on your dates, so that's why you separated in the pods. But my question is why did you cry? Why did you cry? You full on cried, like you were hurt, your heart was broken when Micah said that she was not going to pick you and you should look at your other options. He basically said, when I think Vanessa did pick him up on that in terms of the crying, and he talked about how it was quite emotional and he had to go through that moment to process the pain, but then he felt that he handled it with maturity. And I was like, okay then, okay Kwame, whatever you say, whatever you say. I will say again that you do look happy in your marriage and you both look good together. I was like, okay. So then it went to Micah, and Micah was talking about how she was always going to break up with Kwame. And I would say through that conversation, if you looked carefully, Micah looked very, very uncomfortable, like very uncomfortable. Chelsea, as you would know, was backing her man. She was backing her man and saying that, Kwame had explained it to her and that they were breaking up. So Kwame was breaking up with Micah in the pods, and that's what she went in there to do. Because Micah apparently had told Chelsea that she was going in there to break up with Kwame, which is what she did, to be fair. She did do that. But then, on the flip side, it didn't really show that, she kind of bullied Paul to ask her to marry her, while asking Kwame to be true to her, kind of leading him on and saying that she may marry him, and then not, because, as I said, I think she wanted someone as a second base if it didn't work with Paul. But as I said, that's just my opinion. You let me know what you think. Voice your thoughts, your views in the comments. Chelsea talked about meeting Kwame's mother at Thanksgiving, and apparently that went like really well. I would say that they did bring up the fact that, that Kwame was quite gung-ho in saying that, in parts of this they do live in a fantasy world and a lot is left on the cutting room floor, and the fact that we're only seeing a portion of what's happened, so we shouldn't read too much into it. But in my estimation, I thought he was just trying to spare Chelsea's feelings in regards to that. Because as viewers and what they showed us, that was them. We saw what happened in the pods between Kwame and Micah. So to sit there and say, oh, well, that's not our narrative that is being pushed, is, in essence, I think, absolute bollocks, because at the end of the day, it is your narrative. It is their narrative between Michael and Kwame at that point. It's what happened. It's what's been shown. They spoke to each other in the pods. We were not sitting in those pods with them to say, you need to say this, that, and the other. So, I'm sorry, but that was the narrative at the time. So then we get to Bliss and Zach, and straight off the bat, Vanessa starts putting on the baby, the Love is Blind, bloody baby pressure, and I'm like, come on now. Nobody's thinking of like having babies just yet. They've been together for a year at the end of the day, so they probably had these types of conversations already of when they were going to have babies or try to have babies. So don't put that pressure on them right now. That's all I would say. Don't put that pressure on them right now. She talked about her dad, and she says that her dad will always show up for her and trust in her. She said that her dad and Zach are actually best buds now, and he is actually paying for their honeymoon for them, which is actual brilliant news. And I am glad that Bliss's dad came around and he's given Zach his seal of approval, because I think Zach is taking well good care of his daughter and he can see that. So then it moves on, and I think at this point we get Irina in the room, which I think is a little bit awkward because it's quite silent on them sofas. It was quite silent on them sofas, and then they pan to the video, literally, of Micah and Irina just like being total mean girls together, and shows them being mean as how, like mean as hell. But then that cuts off. We're joined, get back to Irina. The questions are starting to be asked of Irina, and then we get Irina beginning to cry. Now, you tell me, how can someone cry and there's no rotted tears coming out of your eyes? Why are there no rotted tears coming out of your eyes, but yet you are crying? It's a stalling tactic in my books. It's a stalling tactic because you knew what was going to come her way at the end of the day. When people started to ask her questions, her explanations, I ain't going to go through her whole explanations and this, that, and the other, because it was so disjointed and disingenuous. It was ridiculous. I mean, I couldn't hardly understand a word she was bloody saying, because she kept hopping back and forth in terms of trying to think of the best way to eloquently put something across, and it just was not working for her. She kept on trying to think of what she was going to say. She says that she was not the person who she wanted to be in the show, but at the end of the day I would say, but that is who you are, because if you're saying that's not the person who you are in that show, that is the person who you are, because that's what you showed the world, that's what you chose to show the world. Now, if that was not your true character, then why would you consider showing the world that? I mean, leave your answers in the comments. Why would she consider showing the world that? And she showed it time and time again. Bliss spoke up and spoke on Zach's behalf and told Irina that Zach had told her what had happened, and she was super disappointed in her, and she hoped that Irina grew from it and said the eloquent words of, you treated someone, I hope you grow from this, someone so wonderful that you could be treated so poorly. I can't get my words out because it is a lot to take in this video, a lot to take in, but yes, Bliss got on Irina and said that you treated him so poorly, and he's a wonderful person and he didn't deserve what you did to him. And that's when Zach spoke true and said true and right, and said, I don't think you were there for the right reasons. He thought she was there to get famous, and you know what? I agree with him. I think that's what she chose to do. She didn't agree, as we know. As I would say, girl, you're lying, because you know that's why you did it. You didn't really want Zach. It was a competition to you to get Zach over Bliss. That's what that was. No other shape or form. But my view is, it wasn't until you saw Zach that you then decided, this isn't the person that I wanted. But I honestly believe that you went on that holiday just to get a free holiday. Like, really just to get a free holiday. Irina always looked like she'd been slapped hard in the face by what Zach was saying. Like, it was a verbal slap in the face by what Zach was saying about her. She said that she was ready to leave the moment that she saw Zach, but she didn't. She said, I felt unsafe, didn't feel comfortable. She went back and then had a panic attack. And then it was asked her, but you went to Mexico? Why did you go to Mexico? She said she decided to go to Mexico because she needed to go there to speak to Zach. Now, people, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that if you felt unsafe and uncomfortable with someone after you'd met them, after only just speaking to them and not seeing them, and then you decided to go on a honeymoon with them just to talk to them? It kind of rings of, as I'll say again, I wanted a free holiday, and it was Mexico, so I went. I mean, Vanessa did pull her up about her actions. And she did turn around and reply and say she was crying under the pillow. She said she wasn't laughing, that she was crying under the pillow. You know, the scene where she put the pillow over her face when Zach was talking to her. But that doesn't account for the fact that you kept calling him a cartoon character, dear. You'd shy away from any type of affection for him, and you'd actually treat him like absolute balls piece. That's what you did. You treated him like absolute shit. Then she got called out again because she then DM'd Bliss saying that she dodged a bullet. And then she also at the same time texted Zach saying, "Let's talk, I'm sorry," while saying, "I hope that it works out with Bliss." And that's why I'm saying it's easy for her to turn around and say she had a panic attack when all she had was malicious intent, and she showed that malicious intent while she was doing what she was doing. There was no way in any of those scenes between Irina and Zach that that woman showed any type of panic attack. And if anybody saw any type of panic attack, then please get at me in the comments, because I will stand by what I said. You know what I mean? I said what I said. She weren't having no type of panic attack whatsoever. Then they talked about the interaction between Irina and Paul in Mexico, and basically Micah felt it was a disrespect of both partners. And I just thought to myself, why is no one pulling her up even more? To be fair, because all the behaviours were shitty, like honestly shitty. Paul thought that his flirting, from his perspective, wasn't an issue because he was secure in the relationship and what he had, and he wouldn't have pushed any boundaries. There was a line, but he didn't cross it. So he felt there was no danger in affecting Irina and Zach's relationship. Well, dude, there was no relationship between Irina and Zach whatsoever. I mean, you're flirting with, there's a difference between flirting with someone and literally doing the old nip of the finger when they're trying to put it in your mouth. That would have gave me pause for concern, let me tell you, if we were engaged. Then they go on to talk about what Paul said in regards to Micah, especially after he'd made the decision to say no, and in regards to saying that he does not see Micah as a nurturer or couldn't see her as a mom, and Micah was crying and saying how that made her feel terrible because she was trying to say that it was something that they talked about since they were in the pods, the importance of having a family. But I would say she didn't show any of that on the show. She didn't show any kind of nurturing side. I think the show just kind of showed her immaturity, to be fair. I kind of think that at this point she wanted to be seen as the victim and Paul the villain, and Vanessa played right into that, because when she was interviewing Paul, she was asking the hard questions of Paul and literally ignoring Micah in all of that. And I'm like there was a lot of shit that Micah did that you didn't even pick up on. It's like the fact that the party they had with Micah's friends, and Shelby said what she said to Paul, and Paul defended himself. And rather than you saying to your friend, "Stop that, I'm with this person, it's kind of disrespectful," you literally had to go at Paul. You didn't defend him in the bloody slightest. So I don't think she ever showed up for him through that, to be fair, ever showed up for him. Basically, I would say there was a lot. There was a lot to go through. They did push on to Micah's friend Shelby, and Micah explained away Shelby's issue with Paul at the beginning, and then how she reacted after the no was given. And she said that, she believed that her friend thought things were moving too quickly, and even though she was being a good friend, she just had a terrible delivery. Micah was saying that she never wanted her to fail at her marriage. And friends basically, again, putting it back onto Paul, had asked Paul, "What do you love about Micah?" And his response didn't come naturally. And she was concerned that the marriage would fail. To be fair, I think that was a load of bollocks too, I would have to say. As it was, Micah's friends with these girls. These girls laughed at you, like literally laughed at you when you left that wedding distraught. didn't comfort you in the slightest, and were quite happy in their ever-reaching goal that, you know, you didn't get married, and the fact that it was something that your friend Shelby was quite happy with. So my thing is there is a reason why you found an affinity with Irina. There is a reason. Zach then came and defended Paul, trying to tell Micah, why are you trying to make Paul look bad? He's tried to make peace with you for the past, since it's happened, and it looks like that she was there to come for blood, and he apologized and was taking accountability, because what was happening behind the camera is not what she's saying in the reunion and throughout the show, because she had talked about not really wanting to marry Paul, and she never defended him. Zach said she never defended him in that entire situation between Paul and her friends, and he basically asked Micah why was she there. Flipping Micah said that she wasn't here to attack Paul. She was there because she was hurt. And basically Zach piped up and said, but you rarely mentioned that you wanted to get married to Paul. And that she would talk badly about Paul. So he literally pointed out, when Vanessa asked him, well, who's said this? He literally pointed out that, you know, a woman off the show basically has told him, and then it kind of got pointed out that it was Irina. And then we move on to Marshall, Jackie, and Josh, the other love triangle, as they said. Jackie and Josh are still together. What made me, as I said, laugh is the fact that when they turned to interview Marshall, they decided to put clips on the screen. And why, pray tell, did they do a whole montage of Jackie and Josh in the fucking pods together, getting on like a house on fire? Now, this is my thing. My thing is, why in the fuck did you pick Marshall when clearly you had a connection with Josh? It just didn't make no sense to me. But the fact that she turned around within one of those scenes and she called Marshall soft, and it was the fact that Marshall's face just went as if saying, the fuck you say? Telling ya, she would have never appreciated that man. Never appreciated that man. She's got what she wanted anyway. So at the end of the day, as I said, more power to them. More power to them. So then they go on to the Zoom. Then they go on to the Zoom. That was had the day before the reunion. Jackie shouting out that she's grown, that the Jackie that was in the pods and on the show was not her. And I'm like, well, who the hell was it? Did you conjure up a spirit to come take over your body and do the whole show for you? Because I'm asking again, who the hell was it? Why do people keep saying, oh, this is not me, this is not really who I am? When you showed people who the fuck you were, it's always been said, when someone shows you who they are the first time, flipping believe it, and I'm sorry, that's who you showed yourself to be. She's still continuing to say that she broke up with Marshall before she saw Josh at the coffee shop. She tried to say that Marshall pushed her basically to the point of no return when he allegedly gave her a derogatory name, but then said, oh, it was within a joke. At first it was funny, but then it wasn't funny. And then Marshall's looking like, you can see Marshall's face in the corner where you got the little corner screen, as if to say, my girl, you are full of motherfucking shit, and this is the first that I am hearing. She tries to say that she takes accountability for her words and actions, and she wanted Marshall to do the same. And again, the little clip came up of Marshall, and it looked like that all this information again was new to Marshall, because he was like, really? They tried to say that he wanted the ring back because he wanted to propose to someone else on the show. No, and then I just thought with that whole interview that Vanessa was too pally with these people. The questions that we wanted were, why did you act the way that you acted? Why did you pick Marshall if you thought he was soft or that he was a simp? Why didn't you pick Josh in the beginning? Why did you, um, have that flirtatious vibe with Josh at Chelsea's birthday party? Why did you keep the ring? Why did you send text messages and call out, or try and insult Marshall by saying that he was another way inclined in terms of his sexuality, that he had to snap back at you? So none of those questions were asked. There was a lot of questions she could have asked, but none of those questions were asked. And it was a case of, like, again, placating to her, and she was pally. The whole thing was just crap. It was just utter crap. It was a crap interview. So then she turns to Marshall after that was finished, and like Marshall was ready. He leant forward and gave the eyebrow. He was ready. Basically said that he was not happy with that video, but he felt that that video was done because people want him to be reactionary, but he's just going to sit back and let them have their moment, which is good on him. I mean, it's been going on for a pissing year now. Come on. Marshall was direct and he was calm, and basically was saying that, he wanted to get to that altar. He did, because it was a part of the program and the precipice for him, but that was taken away from him. Vanessa keeps going on at Marshall, even though he'd already said that he didn't really want to talk about it anymore, that it was done, they're together, let's move on, it's been a year, let's get over it. But no, Vanessa wanted her pound of cake, basically, so she kept on going on at Marshall, called him up on the derogatory comment, and Marshall saying there's a difference between joking and being able to move on from it if there is a pressure point. And he said that they were both making jabs, and you saw this in the text messages that were leaked. And then again, Vanessa jumps on him and says, yeah, but we've already seen those. And he says, yeah, I'm getting to your question. It's because basically Vanessa wanted to know what was Marshall's part in all of this. Basically, he said that Jackie's comments that were made to him when she was calling him sweet, he felt that it was his turn to take a jab. So he basically told her, you have a strong jawline and you could have been a man for all I know. Pin could have dropped when that was said, because I understand Marshall wanted to get a jab, but I do say in regards to this that there's always disrespect around black women when you want to insult black women by calling us men, making us feel that we are masculine when in actuality we're not. So in my consideration, that was a low blow for Marshall, an absolute low blow for Marshall, and he shouldn't have went there, to be fair. I think when Vanessa's talking to Marshall, she puts all her own emotions in it, because Marshall was quite clear that he didn't use a derogatory term towards Jackie, and he admitted that they were both in the wrong. Again, she harps on and then talks about the ring. Basically, Marshall was saying that I asked for the ring back because it was a symbol of my love, and he felt that she didn't deserve to have that symbol, which is good on him. It is good on him. He says, I didn't want it back to propose to anyone else, and it's wild that Jackie would think that. He did turn around and say that he did date somebody else off the show, and that person sent him a voice note, but the day after they broke up, then Vanessa asked him, well, if Jackie's in that screen, what would you want to say to her? He said there's a lot that he would like to say, however, he should be deserved to move on from this. This whole you versus me needs to die immediately. Basically, he said you have a whole dude and you're still trying to make something out of nothing. He says, I don't have any feelings for you anymore and haven't had them for a year, so let's call it a truce. He did feel slighted again that she didn't even turn up, and I'd have to agree with him. I really would have to agree with him, because you're big and broad enough to get on a Zoom to say what you want to say with your man next to you, but you couldn't even go to the reunion and say what you needed to say to Marshall's face, to let him hear the words in live time, basically. And now he's having to clearly say what he needs to say to a motherfucking screen, basically, to a screen. He just wants everyone to move on, and then it's at that point that, you know, Nick then jumps into the melee and says, and now let's quickly move on, which I was grateful for, because at the end of the day, it was just an absolute shit show. She just kept on piling and piling and trying to pile more on to Marshall. I don't know what she wanted. I really and honestly don't know what she wanted, but she weren't getting the answers that she was seeking. Maybe you should have put that pressure on someone like Jackie and get the answers there, because at the end of the day, how I have always seen it, Jackie did wrong. She did wrong. She really did wrong, and she showed her toxic side that she needed to get some support for. But again, as I say, you like let me know what you think in the comments and make your thoughts and feelings known. And then they move on to, as I said, the montage. They go to the Browns' house, and it is a gorgeous home. They go to Kwame and Chelsea's home, and she has her pink in her happy corner, and they do have a lovely home too. And then it cuts to Zach and Bliss, and he sang for Bliss, and you could see that Arena had that fucking sour face on her face again when he was singing for Bliss. But you know what? They are such a sweet couple. They're an absolutely sweet couple. Basically, they then go on to Chelsea and asking her if she's surprised that you know, people were surprised that she said yes, and she was like, yes, I'm wanting to get onto that. And then she talked about feeling empowered in saying yes, and it was worth it, and that Kwame meets her emotionally, and he challenges her too, and basically that they're madly in love. They're madly in love. Kwame again talking about how he lived out of the country, sometimes 6 months out of the year. But my thing is I understand all of that, but the impression that Kwame gave was he was most likely not going to say yes. We knew all along that Chelsea was going to say yes, because the impression that she gave, and then she talked about that she's been lonely for quite a time and she wanted somebody there, so she would have got married. So yes, she would have said yes. So this bit about she felt empowered to say yes, girl, you was gonna say yes anyway. You was gonna say yes anyway. I'm happy for you both, and I'm happy that it's working out for you both in the face of some of the criticism that's happened, but it was well placed criticism, because at the end of the day, you two did not give the face of a couple that was going to work in the slightest. But as again, you can let me know what you think. Basically, Nick then said, well, it was for them to live in their truth. And when I hear things like that, sometimes I'm like, but yous like put this program out for us to consume, knowing full well that we would have our own critiques, we would have voice our own opinions and views on it, and bring those out to the forefront. So you're putting yourself on a public platform and opening yourself up to that. If that's not what you wanted, then you should stay away from a show like Love is Blind and all the other reality TV shows, to be fair. And then it pans to one of the other Love is Blind cast members going to give a question. Now, I honestly thought when they said one of the past cast members, I thought it would have been Cameron and Lauren, because that would have been lovely for them to come on and give a question to the past cast member, to the current cast members, because at the end of the day, they're another successful story. Do you know what I mean? They're another successful story, so it would have been nice to see them. But now we get Bartis holding his baby, cute little baby. Can't say anything more about that. Cute little baby. And he's questions about babies, basically. And with that, Vanessa goes in. She goes in on Brittany. And as I said, that right now they're enjoying the marriage and want to have their lives set before bringing a baby into the world, because they actually do go and travel. They travel so they didn't want the added pressure of, you know, thinking of another life, but they have had those discussions. And that's why I love those two so much. Chelsea in the show was basically talking about her clock ticking, and it didn't look like her and Kwame was meshing on a time frame in which to have children. But now she says that, you know, her clock was ticking in her mind, but right now she loves her marriage and wants to relax. And Bliss and Zach, Bliss basically said, I can't wait to have this man's babies. Can't wait to have a family with him. And when the time is right, we don't know when that time is, but it may well happen. And that was the end of the show, really. That was completely the end of the show. And as I said, if you didn't watch it, you didn't miss anything out of the ordinary. It was really just stayed. There wasn't any excitement that I can speak of. Yes, there was Jackie and Josh, but as I said, that's a year past now, so it's time to, as Marshall said, it's time to move on from that aspect of it. She's still going to give the narrative that she wants to give, but the other narrative is already out there, because we are not blind. We all saw what we saw, we all heard what we heard, and she can't tell us any differently and put it out any differently in that sense. All I would say to her is just get on with your life with Josh, because you seem happy enough, you got what you wanted in that sense. I hope Marshall finds somebody, and I hope Paul finds somebody, but to the rest of the couples, they absolutely look amazing and they look so happy. May the 24th, we've got the Queer Ultimatum coming, and I, for one, can't wait for that, and I will be giving my reactions to that show when it comes. But in the meantime, I am going to start giving my reactions to Married at First Sight Australia. And as I said, I have to go back to the beginning of this current season and then watch up to now, and each time I've watched it, I will do a reaction video to it. So, as I've always said, thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and thank you for coming back to my channel, and I will ask you to subscribe and like and hit that notification button. Speak to you all soon.